So, Chris, go ahead and you can kind of tell us a little. I told a little bit about you before when you weren't on the air. Probably not nearly enough. So go ahead. I did mention that what you were certified with. You've been a plant financial planner for 125 years, no, 25 years, and that kind of thing. And I did mention also that you're an expert on college planning and financial aid. And that may be something we really, on this show or another, want to concentrate on um, a lot. And also, I think this is good. You're a member, I think it's all good, but you're a member the Society of Financial Awareness. So, financial literacy is something that most of us think we've got some, but probably not, right?
Yes, so thank you, Jay, and thank you, KMET Radio, for having me on. I enjoy spreading the word of financial literacy, or sometimes I call it financial illiteracy, because Americans need help.
Yes, all people need help.
So as far as very quickly, I also chair the Financial Education Task Force for the Irvine Chamber of Commerce. And that's where I kind of go to the schools to help our youth really understand how to do some of the basic financial skills that 60% of Americans fail on how to, or really don't know how to do, such as budgeting, such as what sort of mortgage to get, such as credit cards. And there's just too much today for Americans to really handle and absorb that simply wasn't around 30 years ago. And that's what's causing the problem. So one, financial literacy crisis. You can see on my screen here, I've got a cover of Investment News. So it's actually referred to as a crisis. That's number one. And number two is, some people ask me, what does that mean, financial literacy? Do you think your listeners know what that means, Jay?
Well, I think we all know what literacy is supposed to mean, but what degree do we understand? That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, so they say financial literacy, understanding basic financial concepts. And 60% of Americans aren't able to do that. And, if I can just go through a very quick history on things, Jay, 30 years ago, or let's just say your parents, for example, they didn't have social media, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have text, they didn't have emails, they didn't have internet, they didn't have all this noise coming out.
You know what? I didn't have that either when I was a kid or even a young adult, but go ahead.
Me either. I didn't have it either. And so most our parents and us, for the most part, we grew up with not, maybe you came home and watched the TV after school, right? That was kind of your media. But now people are bombarded with information, robocalls. So it's just sensory overload, number one. So number two, this is the problem today. So 30 years ago, our parents, us, a retirement plan was a pension at work, which you really had nothing to do with. And your health insurance was through work. You had nothing to do with that.
Right.
You wanted to hire a financial person. Usually you would go through the bank to do your mortgage. You would hire a stockbroker to buy stock if you wanted to. And you would maybe have an outside insurance person to provide like auto insurance and things of that nature. That was it. That's all you bought. But today you've got to go get your own health insurance or pick a plan each year, which, as you know, with Medicare, that itself is completely confusing. Then people are supposed to also pick on their benefits. Do I do disability 1, disability 2, long-term care option? Now we've added health savings account and flexible.
Yeah.
So for the most part, when October rolls around and people get a notification, if they have insurance, right, if they have it, that they have to pick their plan by November or whatever, or the end of October. Most people, they say, whatever I did last year, because it's too confusing. Well, let's compound that with all these new accounts that have also popped up, such as Roth IRAs, even traditional IRAs weren't around until the 70s. Now you have 401ks to put retirement money into, maybe a SEP, maybe a solo case. So retirement, there's too many options.
Yeah, I don't know what half of those mean.
Yeah, and some people don't. Simplified employee pension, 401k. And then you have all these new insurance. There's renter's insurance. That wasn't around years ago. Now you have you have tuition insurance, which
I had no idea there was such a thing.
So your kid drops out of school, you have insurance to get back some of your tuition money. Whoa, I didn't know. That's a new one, right? And then you've got pet insurance, right? What? Are you kidding me? There's now pet insurance. So there's all these different insurances, and then now there's all these different investment options. So mortgage options, as you know, are more complex today than they've ever been. So most Americans are just lost financially. It's not as if they don't make good money, and some of them may have assets, even the rich people. But as far as organizing them and understanding them and understanding how they affect one another is what's the financial literacy crisis.
Absolutely. And, it used to be, and maybe in some circles it's thought still that, hey, you don't need a financial advisor unless you're a millionaire. When I was young, that's what kind of was going around. No, we don't have a financial advisor. What, are you kidding?
Well, back then,
that's crazy.
When I started business 25 years ago, there used to be a minimum to open an account at a lot of brokerage firms, which was like $5,000. And so I even got that objection when I started, like, don't you need $5,000 to open? And I do have accounts like that now that are $5,000 to open. But what people need is they just need to just get their stuff organized. If you can just get it organized, you're just going to feel better about it too, because it creates a lot of stress for the family. So number one, conflict. And it's just because your wife goes, hey, how are we doing financially? And in your head, you go, well, checking, savings, retirement, the HSA, credit cards, student loans. I think we're doing good, but it's just a mess.
It's incredible. When you had said student loans, that's going to be a whole nother show probably. But when I was supposed to be in my prime, 40 years ago, whatever it was, yes, part of a financial plan was sending your kid or kids to school. So if that was going to be based on what my own experience was, well, what is it, $700 a semester, something like that? Mm-hmm. Well, by the time us older people got the privilege of paying for our children or paying for our grandchildren's education, higher education, it was no longer $700 a semester. So it was very hard to plan.
Yeah, and what's interesting, you bring that up. As far as this financial literacy crisis, the number one thing fueling it in the United States is the student loan crisis. That's like the pinnacle of the whole thing, because again, that these exorbitant amounts of money for college wasn't around 30 years ago. College has gone up 30% just in 5 years. Just in 5 years. And it's because governments aren't funding them. And so there wasn't this planning around it. So that's a huge, huge problem right now. And you're seeing it in obviously mainstream news, front page news every day.
Well, also, like, I remember when I was a kid, I think I mentioned on the show last week or the time before, when a decent salary was $15,000 or $20,000 a year, a house might have been $35,000. Or let's make it simple. A house was twice as much as a yearly salary. Well, that ratio no longer applies.
That is interesting. Well, here's the other thing to bring up. 30 years ago, right? If people made $100,000, that was a lot of money. Salaries there's still that six-figure number. So salaries haven't kept up with the cost of everything else. So
absolutely.
So that's the other problem is schools have gone from, let's say, $20,000 a year to 60, but salaries have stayed relatively steady. It's so that's also created this problem.
And I think that makes a bigger problem for people my age or some of the older people, because the younger people, at least now, they see the ratio of how much they make to how much they need to spend to how much they need to save or put into accounts. People like myself and somewhat younger than me and older like that, we don't have that experience. we get shocked as we get older.
Yes. And here's another thing to add to that. The number one category or sector of people filing for bankruptcy is in the United States, it's seniors. That's
Yeah,
the
well, that's easy to
growing,
see.
fastest growing in the United States is seniors. And again, it ties into, we got all these accounts and I got lost in the loans and oh shit, we got no money.
Well, on top of that is healthcare.
Healthcare, that's the number one.
I mean, we didn't think we were going to live this long, number one. And number two, the cost of healthcare has gone up, just like the cost of housing, just like the cost of schools.
Well, you're right. I consider elder care in the United States the number one problem in the U.S. because it is so expensive. And I'm certified in long-term care. And the plan is buy insurance after you get sick. Oh, can't do that.
Yeah, right.
And then it's all right. Well, the kids will take care of us. No one plans to be their parent's parent, and it creates a lot of stress on the caregiver, which 40% of the time is the daughter in the whole relationship. She's caregiving for mom or dad. She ends up having all these problems because it's so stressful.
No kidding. It's crazy, but that's just one more reason why. One thing you said in that last group of sentences was, you buy health insurance after you need it, or you get something afterwards.
Long-term care.
Yeah, right.
Sick, and then they go to the doctor.
Right. It's just like, you want to be, I guess it was the Boy Scouts that said be prepared, right? If you're not prepared, you're going to overpay, you're going to get less service. It's just not going to work out. You have to be ready well in advance. And that's why I tell people, and I got this, the idea about a household board of directors from Ron, and you and I are both on Ron Siegel's show on ESPN quite a bit. You have to have a household board of directors, which includes the two of us, other people that you, the listener, trust, and you need to reach out not after you need one of us. You need to interview us for that board of directors, and you need to do it well before the need ever comes up.
Yeah, that's good. That's very profound. I like the board of directors.
Yeah. Well, I got that I copied it from Ron, but that's okay.
That's smart. It's smart. You should have, and again, everything's holistic now. You should have an estate planner, insurance agent, financial planner, your attorney, your mortgage broker, your real estate agent. It's your trusted core people.
Yeah, absolutely. Your trust attorney, because attorneys are specialized like doctors. You need more than one.
Yes, you do.
Absolutely. And the same with a lot of financial people and insurance people. You need to find out, not everybody is going to get along with every personality. That's why these people need to interview us, call us, talk to us, and, and learn, first of all, whether you're going to work with us or not. Everybody needs to learn. And I'm never done learning. So no matter what it is, I always sign up for another class or another session of this or another talk or another whatever it takes.
Smart.
So you say holistic. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that applies to the financial world?
That's very good. Well, what it is everything in financial planning today has gone to this holistic model, or it's a holistic blank. So essentially, the financial planners today, instead of being a stockbroker and selling you stock, or being an insurance agent and offering maybe life insurance, they should be more of a CFO. They're your chief financial officer. So ideally, as I tell my clients, they should be coming to me when they want to buy a house, when they want to lease a car, buy a car, credit cards, their kids are going to school. Any financial decision they make in their life, they should be going to this CFO, or like you said, a board of directors. And then my job is to connect them to the right professionals that I have, essentially vetted out, that I can vouch for.
Now, who's going to be the CEO? Usually the wife, right?
The wife usually is the boss. So
and no matter what, you got to make her feel that she is anyway, right?
And 80% of the time, she also manages the checkbook. Which is fine. However, when it comes to, again, all the complex stuff we have in this world now, which again, I'm pretty good with it after 25 years, but I don't know everything. HSA, FSA, oh my gosh, when did they add these things, right? And it's now this reverse purchase I'm learning about. But you should be able to go to one person or at least your team and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying another property. How does that compare? And hopefully that person has a big picture of everything because it's all interrelated. People will say to me, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I said, well, I have to see everything first. Do you own
Right.
it? I can't just tell you to do something without knowing the big picture.
We're going too far here without you telling everyone how to get a hold of you, all different ways that you want them to know.
Oh,
So we want to do that at least twice. So let's do the
all right.
first time
Well,
now.
I'd like to share with them again. My objective is to, and I don't even like using the word help people. I like to advise people. I like to change people's lives. And the way that they do that, they can check me out. I always tell people, check me out. The easiest thing to do, most people 90% of the time are going to Google you anyways.
Right.
If you just Google Christopher Bissonnette, I'm sure I come up probably first page a lot, but you could put Christopher.
You do. There's a couple of people with your name around, but
There
you're
is.
there. You're there. I did it.
It's a Canadian DJ usually comes up first, Christopher Bissonnette. But if you put Christopher Bissonnette Irvine, then I come up like half the page. And then I represent, today I'm talking about SOFA, the Society for Financial Awareness. And what we do is we provide education to communities on financial literacy topics. I'm doing one next month for Orange Coast College, where I'll be talking to the dean, a lot of their professors, because they want someone to come in and say, hey, tell us about budgeting and spending. That's a big concern of ours right now. How do we do that? How do we manage that? And then at the same time, I'm going to talk about other things as well, maybe wills and trusts or their benefits that they have at work, which they don't even understand. So that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Now, I do have LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And most of those, if you put in Christopher Bissonnette, I'll come right at the top. You can follow me. I post almost daily onto LinkedIn and Twitter, which I've already posted today, and as well as Facebook. I also have Instagram and a YouTube channel as well.
All right. So you're not hard to find, but do you want to give out a phone number or anything?
Sure. You can. I have my office. I have an office in Manhattan Beach, and I also have an office in Irvine. My Irvine number is the best, which is 949-590-9940. People can call me anytime with any question. There's no charge for that. I am a fee-based advisor, which could be for another show, but with the SOFA, my give back is I'm just here to educate, show people the right way to do things.
Yeah, that's now because you're in one area. I think you told me yesterday or the day before that you visit clients. How far away have you visited them? Not that you're going every day on house calls.
I prefer a 5-mile radius. 5-mile radius. Or I would say, seriously, though, about 80% of my meetings I do through the computer, usually Zoom. But again, what's the farthest I've driven from a point? I've driven from Phoenix to Lake Havasu City about 20 years ago. Twice.
Uh-huh.
Twice. I think it was 6 hours. So that was the fun.
But of course, what I do is a little more face to face and a lot of things right there. So I've driven I haven't gone any farther north for business in the last few years than Santa Rosa. And in fact, it is, and it was yesterday, it was a person from Forestville up there, Gail, who's had a birthday. So happy birthday, Gail. And but I love to drive. I love trains. I love to drive. I love to go anywhere. I mean, yesterday was a closing document ceremony. I call it a ceremony because it's success in Culver City. But I know the good restaurants. Obviously, you can see what I look like. So yes, I know where the good restaurants are, and I try to enjoy the trips as much as I can.
How long was the trip? How long did it take you to get back?
Well, it took me an hour to get there. It took me about 2 hours and 5 minutes to get back.
Too.
But it would have been a little longer if I left right after the meeting. So
You stalled it.
I went for some great fish tacos at a place called Detour Bistro or whatever, right there on Washington Boulevard, which is great. I think really good fish tacos.
Oh, good.
So we're talking advice here, and fish tacos are part of the advice, right?
Love
But I'd like us to be doing some of these more specialized kind of presentations, and we can get to all the areas hopefully in the next whatever time there is we've got left here on Earth, to all of these areas where where people are listening, because they're listening pretty wide area. And for any questions, any calls, any referrals or whatever, give Chris or myself a call anytime. My number, by the way, I'll get out of the way, my off-air number, notice how I had to turn to look at it, 866-955-2233, 866-955-2233. The 866 number is because, if you're calling from, Eureka or something, this doesn't tell you I'm so far away. So, sometimes people like that kind of thing. But I'm there whenever. And I'm there hopefully with a lot of advice how to, and what I do is financial. I mean, the reverse mortgages and the education of it is absolutely hand in hand with financial planning, making the best use of your money, making the best use of your equity. So I'm happy to work with financial planners. Some agree, some don't agree, but that's okay. That's what we're all here for.
I agree. And reverse mortgages were on the cover of Investment News, which is my favorite publication, about a few years back, how they made a big comeback, and now the planners need to be familiar with them and use them as a strategy, right, which obviously I have with you. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, absolutely. And, because, you can just keep making the payments the way you were before, but now you've got more flexibility. It's something that if you see my picture, you notice I don't have a lot of flexibility, but you want flexibility with your finances.
Especially when you're senior, you don't have to put $600,000 into a property and have no money and be stressed on what to do. Right. When you can do 300 and then get the other 300 maybe at 5%, and then now you've got some. It's just, I think it blows people away, I'm sure, when they really figure, when you really comes to the end of that celebration meeting, Jay, where you're like, you got to come on with this amount of money. I think sometimes you're like, really? That's it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got such more choices in your future when you've got something like that, like a product like that. So, and I know another one of your real specialties is helping people pay for their kids for education. And I know this show, we'll have more shows. I know on this show we're just bouncing around a little bit just because you do know and educate on several different, not too many, but not too many, enough, because all of these disciplines are attached to each other. Not always. Sometimes you're working with a younger person, with a kid going to school, sometimes an older person with a granddaughter going to school, and themselves looking at healthcare. All of those things intermingle. And you've done great things that I understand, that I know, in getting kids into and through school without the parents and grandparents going broke and losing their home.
Well, I think that was well said. It's funny you bring that up. Here is almost a current issue of Investment News where it says, buried under college costs. So you got the parents here buried under the college costs.
Wow.
And I will say, without getting into too much detail, I call it the college planning dilemma and student loan crisis. That's the presentation I give. And it's because the college planning process is so complicated, way more complicated than any estate planning out there. Every school does it different, the FAFSA and the EFC reduction. But in summary, I'll just give you one example. I have a client of mine whose son was planning to go to a school in Colorado. And I said, great. He hired me to do his college planning for him and financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
I lowered his expected family contribution from what he would have paid to what he's going to pay by $7,000 a year. So potentially $28,000 right off the bat, based on how he answered some questions on the FAFSA. And I'm going to try and lower it again by another $2,000 a year next year by claiming his kids. Long story short, some other kids as dependents. And then so the school for Colorado State was $17,000 a year. That was the expected family contribution. SC, which is twice as much, $70,000 a year, is $4,000 a year.
Wow.
So about 400% less for a school that is, again, nothing wrong with Colorado State, but it's a state school, and it's just, it's $25,000 a year, but it's going to cost you 17. You can go to a school that costs $70,000 a year for 4.
Wow, that blows me away, and probably a whole lot of listeners out there. So I can almost afford to go to SC?
Well, if you could get in and you get your expected family contribution, which is $0 to $1 million, if you can get that down, the lowest is $1,900 for USC because they use the institutional method. Then yes, if you could get in, you could go for about $1,900 a year if you get your ESC down.
Wow.
They will come up. The school will pay $69,000 for you to attend there. Why is that? Because they have $4 billion of endowment. Who knows this? Nobody knows this.
But I might take up too much room because they may not give it to me. I take up 2 desks instead of 1.
You have to apply for 2 scholarships.
All right. Oh, yeah. That's why I love talking to you, because you always have some kind of a way to solve things. We're problem solvers, correct?
That's it, man. That's it. Solving problems.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and give I told you this was going to go faster than we wanted it to. You got some good plans for the 4th of July?
Well, as you know, Jay, I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I have no plans.
Okay. They are your plans, right?
So we'll be hanging out at the Legacy Club. I told you I'm barbecuing on July 4th, so.
All right.
So
go ahead. We've got 1 minute left. Throw out your contact information one more time. I think you've heard mine enough.
I would say is just Bissonnette is my last name. B as in boy. Issonnette. Bissonnette. That's my LinkedIn name, and my Twitter name are both Bissonnette. So that's easy. If you do want to just follow me on Facebook, it's Preserve and Build Wealth. And my phone number, again, is 949-590-9940.